great deal happened in a very short time. Mr. Benedict fell asleep, having been startled by the emergency bell, and toppled sideways into the ready arms of number 2. The children haven't even had time to trade looks of alarm before the bell stopped ringing, the lights went out, and Constance screamed. And then, after much jostling and elbow bumping and fumbling in the dark, Kate found her flashlight and switched it on, and Constance was gone. "Where'd she go?" Renee cried. "Maybe she went down to the landing like we're supposed to," said Sticky. "Somehow I doubt it," said Kate. "Okay, all of you," said Rhonda urgently as number 2 tried to shake Mr. Benedict awake. "Hurry down to the landing at once. Milligan will meet you there, and he can find Constance if necessary. Number 2 and I will join you as soon as Mr. Benedict wakes up. Now run!" The children stumbled from the room, Kate leading the way with her flashlight, and out into the dark hallway. With the thunder rumbling and wind moaning and rain beating on the roof, it would have been quite impossible to hear someone sneaking up on them, and the children, aware of this, clung to one another in the darkness as they found their way to the stairs. Trembling at each fresh burst of thunder, they made their way down to the landing. Kate's flashlight beam passed over the bell, hanging silent and still, then fell upon a very sad face. "Where's Constance?" Milligan said. "What did I tell you?" Kate said to the boys. "We were hoping she'd be here," said Renee. Milligan looked grim, even more so than usual. "She may have slipped past me in the dark. This complicates things. No time to take you to a safe place if she's in the maze. We might lose her any second, but I can't leave you here alone. You'll have to come down with me." "Into the maze?" Sticky asked. "Into the dark?" "There's no help for it. Now grab onto my jacket, Sticky, and the others, you grab onto him. Whatever you do, stay with me, and Kate, turn off your flashlight. It will only help them find you." "Them?" "Yes," Milligan said. "They've come for you. Now don't speak." None of the children spoke, though 2 of them gulped, and down into the maze they went. The lights were out, too. They no longer came on when you entered a room. It was perfectly black. And in this perfect blackness they moved, stalking from room to room, until Milligan suddenly froze. The children caught their breath. At first, Renee saw nothing. Then, looking behind them, he glimpsed 2 flashlight beams passing through one of the other rooms. He squeezed Sticky's arm. Sticky squeezed back even harder. From the direction of the flashlights came a sudden cry of pain. It was Constance's voice, followed by a thudding sound, as if someone falling to the floor. A man's voice hissed, "I have her!" "Come," Milligan whispered, hurried toward the lights. The children followed, holding fast to one another. It was awkward walking so quickly together in the dark, and though Kate moved with the grace of a cat, the boys stumbled trying to keep up. Perhaps they slowed Milligan's progress too much, for when they entered the room a few moments later, the flashlights were gone. The room lay black and still. It seemed quite empty except for a sharp, spicy fragrance that lingered in the air. "I smell your cologne," Milligan said, speaking into the darkness. "I hope you like it," said a man's voice. The flashlights snapped on behind them, casting their shadows onto the wall. "Now please turn around. Turn around very slowly. Let's all stay nice and calm." Milligan started to turn, but the terrified children, realizing they'd been tricked and not wanting to believe it, clutched at one another and did not move. "It was a little too slow," said the voice. "Come on now, let's have a look at you. Don't worry, we won't shine the lights in your eyes. I know that's uncomfortable." Milligan pressed the children's shoulders and slowly turned them toward the voice. The man had spoken the truth. The flashlights were pointed downward, and in the glow cast by their beams, Renee could make out who carried them. He didn't know what he had expected to see, but it wasn't this. 2 handsome men, one of them impressively tall, staring back at him with pleasant, welcoming expressions. The men wore tailored suits and large, expensive-looking silver watches, and over their suits they wore fine-looking raincoats that dripped water onto the floor. Both smiled in an unexpected friendly way. In fact, their bright smiles, along with their elegant appearance, were for an instant so surprising and disarming that Renee almost relaxed. Almost. But then his eyes fell on a lumpy canvas bag in the shadows behind them. Out of the bag poked one of Constance's tiny feet. Do you really think we couldn't hear you coming? Asked the tall man. He spoke cheerfully, as if he and the children were sharing a joke. Why, you're a herd of buffalo. Now raise your hands above your heads, please. Rene was frightened, but he couldn't see why they should obey. The men seemed to carry no weapons, but Milligan did as the man said. Obviously, he knew something Rene didn't, and so, with hearts galloping, Rene and Kate let go of each other and raised their hands too. Sticky, however, had grown confused in his fright and would not let go of Milligan's jacket. Please tell the bald boy to raise his hands, insisted the tall man. It's all right, Sticky, said Milligan. Do as he said, child. Come on, let's go. At last, Sticky managed to release his grip. The moment he did so, and to the great surprise of everyone present, Milligan leapt toward an open doorway and vanished from the room. He had moved so quickly and so unexpectedly that no one had a moment to react before he was gone. The men looked at each other and burst out laughing. Rene felt his mouth go dry. Sticky let out a whimper. Some protector, laughed the shorter man. I must say, he did a fine job of protecting himself. I've never seen anyone move so fast. The tall man chuckled. Did he seem familiar to you at all? Now that you mention it, he did, said the other, scratching his head, though I can't place it. How? Anyway, let's get this over with. What are you going to do with us? Kate demanded. Though her legs trembled, her voice was defiant. The tall man tucked his flashlight under his arm and held out both hands, palms forward, in what was meant to be a comforting gesture. Now, stay calm, he soothed. Meanwhile, the shorter man was doing exactly the same thing, tucking away the flashlight and holding out his hands. It was then that Rene noticed that the men's huge silver watches were identical, and that for some reason they each wore one watch on each wrist. If you children stay nice and still, said the tall man, flashing a sympathetic smile, I promise this won't hurt a bit. Oh, come on. Let's tell the truth for once, said the other. Just for kicks. The tall man rolled his eyes. All right, the truth is this will hurt. A lot. But if you hold still, he said, shaking his arms to clear the watches from his suit cuffs, I promise it won't hurt long. Rene felt Kate and Sticky stiffen beside him. They didn't know what was coming, but they knew it was going to be awful. The men started laughing again. Rene heard an electrical hum. Abruptly, the laughter ceased. It was interrupted by two odd whistling sounds, upon which the tall man closed his eyes, dropped his flashlight with a clatter, and sank to the floor. The other did exactly the same, slumping unconscious on top of his partner. The flashlights, rolling free, sent their bright beams willy-nilly about the room. One of the beams settled on the doorway behind the fallen men, where Milligan now stood holding a tranquilizer gun. He stepped over to pluck two tiny feathered darts from the men's shoulders, saying as he did so, Remember, children, for every exit, there is also an entrance. All right. That was exciting, but they got him.
Wait, Mr. Mosley.